What's up, YouTube? It's the Console Samurai. And for the last few days, there's been a lot of debate about whether or not the preservation of old games should be legal. I know that sounds like a very strange thing for people to even really argue about, but the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and the Electronic Software Association have been arguing back and forth as to whether or not these old games can be preserved. The EFF wants to create a museum of gamer history, of all of the hardware, software, peripherals, everything. That they want to create this museum that is just a tribute to gamer history, which I think is a great idea because gamer history is actually pretty interesting. From the beginning of it to the crash in the 80s to all the controversy in the 90s to its resurgence to it being such a powerhouse now that major companies like Sony and Microsoft have gotten into it, and all the technological advancements, and the companies that were on top and now are at the bottom or are completely defunct, and so on and so forth. It's actually an interesting history, and I think it's worth preserving. It's worth a museum. Maybe not a huge museum, but it is an interesting history. But to do this, the EFF, obviously they're going to need working copies of every game that they want to collect. Well, the issue is that the ESA says they can't do that. The ESA says that in accordance with Digital Millennium Copyright Act, Section 1201, the modification of any game, console, or hardware or software to ensure that a game is playable even after the servers have been defunct and abandoned constitutes hacking. So it is against the law. Now, this to me doesn't make any sense at all. Because, first of all, as I said, the servers are defunct. The servers are abandoned. And in many cases, the companies that made these games are also defunct and have been abandoned completely. The studios are gone. So the idea of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act actually protecting these IPs, because the reason the ESA said they would do it, or that they couldn't do it, the ESA said you cannot do this because it would increase piracy. It would take away from copyright claims. It would devalue copyright claims of the companies who own the copyrights. Okay, there's not going to be any copyright claims because all of these games that they're trying to modify to make still playable, they've been abandoned. The games themselves have been abandoned by the companies that made them. You look at a game, well, for example, you look at Chrome Hounds. Chrome Hounds is one game that comes to mind on the Xbox 360, which had an online requirement but no online component. The EFF wants to modify that and remove the online component and still have the game be playable. Now, regardless of whether the game was a good game or not, the point was that they wanted the game to still be playable. And it's not, because once a game like this, the server goes defunct, the game is a coaster. You can't play it anymore because it won't boot up because it needs the server, even if there is no online component. Well, the EFF wanted to do away with that, as I said, and the ESA said, no, that would be hacking. You can't do that. But, still, regardless of what the DMCA says, video games can be art and need to be preserved. Because video games are no less beautiful than a painting. They are no less effective at taking you to other worlds as a book is. They are no less musically pleasing as, well, music. The soundtrack to a game can be just as great as a great record or a great CD or great album or whatever. And is every game going to be a piece of art? No, not every game isn't going to be a piece of art. They're far and few between. But that doesn't make it less art, because not every painting is art. Not every book, excuse me, not every book is going to be a piece of art. Not every album is going to be a piece of work. For every Beatles, you have Creed. It's just the way it goes. For every Mona Lisa, you're going to have a stick figure. For every Great Expectations, you're going to have a Twilight, to be honest. But it doesn't mean that the games are less worthy of being preserved as art. They are art. Just because they're a digital medium doesn't make them less piece of art, because it's It's just the way it is. They are pieces of art. The amount of work that goes into them, as visually astounding as they have become in the last few years, they are art. It is that simple, and they do deserve to be preserved. And the main concern of the ESA is that, well, all these companies, they're going to lose copyright money, and on all these games that they've abandoned, and they've gone, well, we don't care about them anymore. Well, these companies don't care about the games anymore. They're not talking about disseminating these games. They're talking about preserving them. This isn't somebody going, well, I want to copy the game and make it digital and make $1 billion off it. This is a group of people going, this is a great game. We want to modify it so it stays playable for future generations to enjoy. That's all they want. And I personally think that the EFF is 100% right in this. The ESA is completely wrong, and the Digital Millennium Copyright Act is once again proven to just be, well, it just it just makes money off dead people and ideas that somebody else had, basically. I hate the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It is nothing but a ridiculous system to claim everything is hacking and piracy. But anyway, tell me what you think in the comments down below. Do you think that video games should be preserved? Do you think they should be preserved for future generations? Are they art? Or do you think that we can let them go? We don't need the older games. We've got the new ones. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. Once again, I am the Console Samurai, and I'll see you around.